Okay, so what if I told you that a huge chunk of what you learned in biology class about where you came from is just plain wrong? Well, today we're going to completely tear down that origin story you think you know and introduce you to your first and probably most important social network.
Yeah, for more than a century, the picture science painted was pretty simple. You spent your first 9 months floating around in what was basically a biological panic room, a perfectly sterile, completely sealed off clean room. The idea was that a fetus was totally protected from the messy, microbe-filled world right up until the moment of birth.
But here's the thing. This idea of a private, isolated, VIP single room, it's a total myth. The latest science is showing us that the reality is way more interesting. It's more like a bustling community garden, a complex, interactive ecosystem that's been thriving since day one.
To really get how big of a deal this shift is, we have to go back and figure out why the entire medical world was so confident about the wrong idea for so long.
So how did this happen? How did one flawed idea become scientific law? Well, it all started back in the late 19th century with something called the sterile womb dogma. And for decades, it just kept getting reinforced by studies that all shared the same massive, fundamental flaw. A flaw that took until the 21st century for our technology to finally correct.
The whole problem, the crucial mistake, was in the method. For 100 years, scientists were using what we now call culture-dependent methods. They'd take a sample, smear it on a petri dish, and just wait and see if anything grew. But the thing is, most of the specialized microbes in the womb just can't survive in a lab environment. The new culture-independent method, it doesn't even try to grow them. It just looks for their genetic fingerprints.
So when those petri dishes always came up clean, the conclusion seemed obvious. The womb must be sterile. But really, it was like taking a fishing net with holes the size of basketballs out into the ocean, catching nothing, and then confidently declaring that the ocean is completely empty.
But all of that changed. The moment researchers stopped trying to catch the fish and started looking for their DNA instead, well, that's when they cracked the whole code wide open. So instead of trying to keep these delicate little organisms alive, scientists started using these powerful new machines to look for their unique genetic barcodes, their raw DNA and RNA. And the second they did that, it was like a vault wasn't just unlocked, it was blown completely off its hinges.
And they didn't just find a few stray microbes here and there. No, they found a whole microbial metropolis. These incredibly diverse communities in the amniotic fluid, inside the placenta, all over the fetal membranes. But here's the most shocking part. This wasn't happening in sick or complicated pregnancies. This was the norm. This was happening in perfectly healthy, normal ones.
Okay, so if these microbes aren't invaders, if they aren't making the baby sick, then what on earth are they doing in there? And this, my friends, is where the story gets really mind-blowing.
Turns out these microbes aren't invaders at all. They're trainers. Think of them as the first sparring partners for your developing immune system. This means your immune system didn't just flicker on at birth. No way. It was in training, getting primed and coached for months before you ever saw the light of day.
And this early training is absolutely critical. We're talking about things that affect you your whole life, your baseline health, how likely you are to develop allergies, your body's fundamental ability to fight off future infections. All of that was being negotiated and calibrated before you took your first breath.
Now, this discovery doesn't just rewrite our understanding of the immune system, it forces us to ask a much deeper question about what we actually inherit from our parents.
Right? We're all taught the same thing in school. Inheritance is this clean 50-50 split of DNA. Half from your mom, half from your dad, and boom, that's you. But if there's this whole other community of living cells and microbes hanging around from the very beginning, is DNA really the whole story?
The answer is a hard no. It's not the whole story at all. This has led scientists to develop a huge new framework called the Fiske model. That stands for female-relayed whole cell and cytoplasmic inheritance. And basically, it suggests we inherit way more than just a genetic code from our mothers.
Think of it like this. If your DNA is the blueprint for a new building, your mother's egg provides literally everything else you need to get started. The cytoplasm, that's the whole factory. The mitochondria, that's your power grid. And all these other intact living cells, they're the workers who actually start building the thing. And it gets even wilder. It's not just about what's in that first egg. During the entire pregnancy, the mother and fetus are basically a shared cellular economy. They are physically trading living cells back and forth across the placenta. It's mind-bending. Her cells cross into the fetus, and the fetus's cells cross back into her. You're not just your code. You are a product of the entire cellular world that code grew up in.
Now, you'd think this incredible physical connection would just stop at birth, right? The umbilical cord gets cut, and that's the end of it. But as it turns out, this story has one more absolutely incredible chapter.
The integration just keeps going through a process called the FBBC cycle. I gotta be honest, this was the part of the research that just completely stopped me in my tracks. It reveals a level of biological connection between mother and child that we never knew existed, and it continues long after birth.
So get this. The whole process is like nature's ultimate recycling program. During pregnancy, some of the baby's own cells actually travel into the mother's breast tissue. Then, after the baby is born, the mother returns those exact same cells back to the baby through her breast milk. The milk even contains a kind of microscopic armor that protects those cells from stomach acid so the infant can reabsorb its own recycled cells. It's unbelievable.
So when you zoom all the way out and look at this entire picture, it points to a really profound new idea. You see, for centuries, we've had these two giant theories in biology that never really talk to each other. Pasteur's germ theory, which says microbes are bad guys, and Darwin's theory of evolution.
But this new science proposes a grand unification of the two. The idea is that we don't just evolve despite our microbes, trying to fight them off. We evolve with them, and maybe even because of them. The bacteria, the viruses, all the life we interact with from the moment of conception, they are active participants in our own evolution. Now, of course, we have to put our science hats on and do a quick reality check here. These models are on the absolute cutting edge. I mean, this is the frontier. They are brilliant, game-changing frameworks, but they're going to need years, maybe decades, of rigorous scientific validation to prove out all the details. But the implications are just massive. You've never been just an isolated island of human DNA. And that leaves us with a huge, fascinating question for our own future. If this deep, messy, maternal and microbial connection is so fundamental to our development, what does that really mean for technologies like artificial wombs? What are we forgetting to put in the blueprint?